Welcome to the first lesson for Chapter 5. This is Lesson 5.1a, Writing Ratios in Simplest Form. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities, and we do this by division. However, we can write a ratio in three different ways. We can write it with the word 2 in it, such as 5:2:8. We can use a division bar or a fraction bar, 5/8, or we can use a colon, 5:8, but we read that 5:8. Now you can also do a ratio with variables, so we can have a to b written with the word 2, or with a fraction bar, division bar, or using a colon, and again we always read that as a to b. Ratios compare a part to a second part, a part to a whole, or a whole to a part. If you look at the diagram at the top of this particular part, you will see that there are 4 triangles, 6 squares, and 2 pentagons. We are first going to write a ratio of triangles to squares. The first word, triangles, comes before the word 2. Now we generally do write these as fractions or using division bar. The triangles has to go on top because that comes first. We call that a first term. The number of squares is what we call a second term. If we were going to simplify this, much like fractions, it would be 2 to 3. Now let's look at B. We have pentagons, 2, over the number of triangles, 4, which we can reduce to its simplest form of 1 to 2. At this point, hit pause, and you do C, D, and E. The number of squares would be 6 to the number of pentagons, 2. We would reduce that to 3/1. And in ratios, that's actually simplest form. Some books will tell you 3, but ours actually uses 3:1. All polygons, if you count them all, the triangles, the squares, and the pentagons, there are 12. And the number of triangles is 4. So again, we are going to have a ratio of 3:1. All polygons to the number of squares and pentagons. This means we add the number of squares and the number of pentagons, and we would get 8. When we reduce that, we will have 3/2, or 3:2. Now, expressing them in simplest form can be a little tricky, because sometimes we are going to be asked to use quantities. And in this case, they are asking us to compare seconds to minutes. We really can't do that. We're supposed to compare seconds to seconds. So we are going to have to convert 2 minutes into seconds. We would do that by taking 2 times 60, since there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. That would give us a total of 120 seconds. Now we can write our ratio of 50/120, and now we can reduce to lowest terms. Remember that when you have a 0 over a 0 like this, this means that there's a 10 in the 50 and there's a 10 in the 120. That actually cancels, and I'm down to 5/12, which is in simplest form since 5 and 12's greatest common factor is 1. You try B. We first have to convert the 3 minutes by taking 3 times 60 to get 180 seconds. Now I can put 30/180. 0 over 0, remember that's 10/10, but 3/18 can also be reduced to 1/6. In C, we have 5 times 12, which is 60 inches. So I'm going to have 60 to 60, which, as you well know, should be 1 to 1. 1 hour is 60 minutes, so I'm really going to have 10 minutes over 60 minutes. These 10s are going to cancel, so I'm going to have 1 to 6. And that concludes Lesson 5.1a.